Good morning, dear students. Today I will just try to give you an overview of an important subject of journalism in this 3-year study that you will be undergoing. Reporting and editing is the name of the subject, and we deal with many areas in that. And before that, I'll just try to tell you why should you know about reporting and editing as a journalist. Now, this is not confined only to one type of media. It is confined to all types of media, and you know what we mean by various media. It means the electronic media, the television, the radio, the print media, the internet or the web that we call, and it also sometimes goes even to the extent of social media also. Reporting and editing, as we see, as the term implies, reporting means just state the facts, just gather all the ingredients of the day's development or the news that you try to gather. When we send a reporter on a task, his first duty is to gather all the facts, get the raw data, and he should be in a position to answer all the questions that a reader is expecting when he reads a news item, or when he views a news item on a television, or when he listens to a news item on a radio, or if it is what you call it as an internet newspaper. What he looks for are the bare facts. And when we say bare facts, we are expecting answers to some of the simplest questions of the 5 W's and 1 H. These are the most important things that we look into a reporter's area, where he tries to get what happened, when has it happened, where has it happened, why has it happened, how it has happened. Now, some of these questions are there which are constant, irrespective of the nature of the news item. He gets answers for this. Now, he doesn't add any other adjectives to his news story. He puts the bare facts, and that is the basic duty of a reporter. So, as we go along during the course of this journalism, and as part of this subject, reporting and editing, I'll try to tell you some of the key areas, not that we will be also covering other areas, but some of the most important areas that we will be covering in the course of this subject, either through theory or through practicals, and I'll try to explain to you some of the most important, key areas of what we will be discussing. So let's see actually some of the key areas of reporting. We'll come to the editing part of this subject later. Now first we'll see some of the key areas of reporting. As you see here, we have the first qualities and duties of a reporter. Strictly speaking, or honestly speaking, I should tell you that we don't have really a set rules of responsibilities and duties of reporter. But as you go along and when you are doing your practicals, you will be able to know how responsible you will be and how duty bound you are when you are carrying out the task of reporting. Now, what are the qualities that we expect of a reporter? Basically, we expect him to be knowledgeable in the sense that he should be a daily reader of a newspaper. He should be abreast of what exactly is happening on day-to-day basis. Particularly, he should be thorough in the current events, and then only he can be really a good reporter. We also expect, journalists always say that a good reporter should have a nose for news. He should be able to smell news, not simply news, but he should be able to smell news. There are reporters who can make news out of nothing, but there are also reporters, if they are not efficient, even when there is a very good news development, they try to bring nothing also. So there's a wide difference between these two, and between these two extremes we have what you call it as the qualities and duties of a reporter. He should have an eagle's eye, he should have a very sharp, what I mean is that he should be able to smell the news, he should be able to catch and see if he can make a news out of something which you might not find in your contemporary or your competitive newspapers also. So there are many responsibilities. He should know a little about the law also, and he should know, particularly he should know about sensitization. He should be very careful when he's reporting about women, children or gender or human rights or violation of human rights, law or legal points. So that's the basic thing, is that he should not run into trouble as he's doing his work. Then we have here what is known as reporters have over a period of time, say the first 2 or 3 years, once they become mature in their area or in their profession, they also have a privilege of getting what is known as accreditation card. Accreditation card affords him the right to go to various press conferences or press meets organized by the central government or the state government. So it's a privilege that is given to very few reporters, maybe hardly about 20% of the entire reporters may get this privilege of having what is called an accreditation card, which is not simply given just like that. The government has its own, both the central and the state government have their own rules coined by the respective departments of information and public relations, who will see whether you are fitting into that particular eligibility of getting the accreditation card. This will be a very lengthy process. We will be able to know exactly what we mean by this as we go along. And then we have different types of reporting. We don't just report, when I said only news. Now everything, like in medical field, we have now in reporting also areas of specialization. We have completely now dissected reporting. So people are now able to specialize in a particular area of reporting. A reporter with a background of law can become a very good reporter. Say he can resort to what is known as legal reporting. He can go to courts, he can cover legal cases, criminal or civil, and that is what we call it as advocate reporting or legal reporting. So like that there are many specialized forms of reporting also. Now, now a person who is good in say agriculture, who has a background of agriculture, can report on agriculture report. A person who has got a background of social sciences can go about community reporting. So these are different kinds of reporting or different types of reporting, which is again a very lengthy area, which will take a good number of classes where you will be able to have a broad view of what we mean by different types of reporting. Then nowadays we have different tools of news gathering. Gone are the days when we had the other simple tools of camera or anything, but what we do here is that something which you do on the computer also. And we have some tools of news gathering, both national, international and even local also. That also we will be discussing as we go along. And one of the most important area is, this is one important thing that we keep in mind. This is somewhat linked to the first area, qualities, and then at the same time duties. That is linked to this, but we have put it here because ultimately when the report is ready, you will have to analyze whether you have really achieved what is known as objectivity. Really, have you achieved from what you planned in trying to report, say, a particular story? Then we have what you call the reporting for local newspapers has its own, what you call it as, its own specialization, where to cater to the local area. So a reporter should be well versed with the local people, local places, local geography, and local culture, and all these things he should be able to know so that he will be able to report for local newspapers. Dear students, we have so far seen various aspects of reporting, but once the reporter completes his task, the job is only half done, because before we see the news that a reporter has prepared, there is another task that is performed by people at the editorial desk. So what happens after a report is kept ready for publication? It doesn't get published instantly. It is further processed, fine-tuned, it is edited. Now editing is the next dominant area of this subject, the second part of what is known as, what we can call this as post-reporting task. Now editing, as we know, as the term implies, is not simply to cut. Editing is to delete, editing is to rewrite, editing is to modify, editing is to fine-tune, editing is to make it more explicit, or editing is to make it abbreviated, we look for what is known as brevity. We try to see whether a report that has been submitted by the reporter is in the right direction for the reader to be able to comprehend it easily and quickly. And this part of editing, in print media, we call it as editing, where everything is done on the computer. Because we do it on the computer, we can call it as offline editing or online editing also sometimes. Most of the times in print media, we edit it first and then we later send it for printing. When we talk about editing, we only don't mean that we edit only the text. There is now a method of editing even the illustrations also. Now, such a vast subject, as we go along in this course, This is an exciting subject, and the success of any news story which appears in a newspaper or in a news capsule or on a news broadcast, we will be able to know or understand that something else has happened after reporting of the story, and that is how to make it presentable to the reader, easy to understand, maintain a flow of language, and see that he is able to do it very quickly. Now, there are no hard and fast rules for editor. For a journalism students, he has all the liberty of actually going through the entire text, going through the pictures, and then decide how he should be able to, what you call it as, edit the story. So he is the best judge, but at the same time, he should realize that he has a very big responsibility of also what you call it as taking the consequences or the benefits of an excellent story. So he should be in a position to take big bats or bouquets of what he has edited, he or she has edited. And we have some basic principles of editing, which we call it as, what we call it as, in terms of grammar, in terms of punctuation, in terms of what we call it as the words that we use, special words that we use. We make use of so many words, and we have to see out of say about 10 synonyms. Why do we take a particular synonym, particular word, and why not the other word, though both mean the same? So that is what actually we mean by the techniques of editing, by what we call it as sometimes. In all nuances of editing are carried out here, and the best person is a good reporter over a period of experience also becomes a good editor, because he is able to understand what changes need to be done before the story is sent for publication. Now, sometimes, many a time, the other area where many a time copy is sent to the news desk, where reporter is not involved, organizations, corporate bodies, government people send their press releases, press notes, and everything. Everyone can submit any story. It has nothing to do with reporter. Now, we don't know, sometimes news comes from various sources, and many a time there you would have a situation where the story is so good, but you are unable to publish because you need to rewrite the entire copy. So we rewrite different types of copies because they are newsworthy. So we rewrite, but then mind you, we have to do everything in a very, very time-bound manner, in a very qualitative manner. This is another important area which will be very exciting for us to know how we rewrite different types of copies. When we mean by different types of copies, the copies can be of different stories, of different nature, from different organizations, on different areas, on different topics, can be scientific, can be non-scientific, can be general, can be entertaining, can be anything, but then as long as they are worthy to be published, and the editor does sometimes resort to this rewriting, though slow, but if you feel it's worth it, then it's worth rewriting different copies of stories. Now, another important area we will be covering this is style sheet. Most of the editors also, most of the people who are on the editorial desk, sub-editors, assistant editors, deputy editors, resident editors, all of them stick to one particular policy laid down by the organization in the form of what we call it as a style sheet, or we also call it as a house style. Every organization has its own editing, what you call it as an editing platform. In other words, they have their own editing rules where they follow uniformity when it comes to say spelling. So Z-A-T-I-O-N or S-A-T-I-O-N. You don't use both of them as you like. We use either of them, either American type of Z-A-T-I-O-N or the UK, English, British type of S-A-T-I-O-N. These are the small things but nitty-gritty things that will be looked into meticulously, and what you edit there that reflects the identity of that particular newspaper. Let us take the Hindu has its own style sheet, the Indian Express has its style sheet. So every newspaper has its own style sheet, and you stick to the borders laid down in this particular style sheet, and you don't cross that particular style sheet when you are trying to edit various kinds of stories that are published in your concerned newspaper. Now, this is another important area where it is also actually provided in the form of a booklet, the style sheet or a style book, or we also call it as house style. Another area which we do is sort of, now there is no point of your editing unless the reader has to be attracted towards your story. and what attracts him towards your story. Your headline attracts him. It's like an entrance gate. It's like in a gated community, it's the entrance, the welcome arch is the one which is the most important thing for the reader, for anyone to say enter. The reader has to be attracted, perhaps shocked, perhaps stunned, perhaps surprised, perhaps excited, and there should be a headline which should attract him, which should excite him to read the headline, grab it quickly, understand the headline, and develop a curiosity of going through the news item. It is the technique of headline writing that makes the reader get into your story, read the entire story also. So headlines are more important. This is also because most of the times readers have no time to go through the entire story. Quite possible they may go through only the headlines. As you see, when you see these passengers in the trains or the buses or the metro, you find passengers reading the paper, but what they are doing is that they are not reading the headlines. They are just grabbing or scanning the headline, which means your headline has to be coined so naturally, in such a way that the reader is able to grab a group of words, not word by word. So few words, lengthier meaning, longer meaning, and all those things can be understood. And this as a technique, there are different types of headlines and different types of headline writing. All this will be covered in this entire thing. We will be dealing with practicals. We will also give you lots of exercise on how you go about writing headlines for a new story. We will give you a story. We will ask you to coin a headline. We will try to give you so many exercises where you will be able to develop the art and technique of headline writing. And this is the brief area of what you call it as the reporting and editing. So, dear students, I am sure as we go along, we will be discussing each area. I have only given you an overview of key areas, and when we go into each area over a period of so many classes during the entire course, you will at the end of the course become what you call as an accomplished a person who will be knowing the actual tricks of trade. As we complete the syllabus, you will be able to become what you call it as a budding reporter or a budding editor. Next areas of this particular subject in the editing is that of what you call it as editorials. Editorials matter a lot. As a matter of fact, the editorials of print media are given a lot of importance by the people who matter a lot. For instance, the Prime Minister is keen to know about what is written in editorial on a very important topic before he takes a decision on a particular policy. So that is the kind of the power that an editorial wields. And normally who writes the editorial now? It is now written by very well accomplished journalists, senior journalists who are given the task of writing editorials. So normally you find two editorials. When you open a newspaper, you find an editorial page. In the center of the thing, you have what is an editorial page, you have an opposite, you have an op-ed page also. And these editorials are actually, they do perform some of the important functions of attracting the attention of the readers, of the government, of the people who, and the credibility of the editorials depends on the type of the paper, the kind of the newspaper. So some of the top 10 newspapers in our country are always viewed by the top officers in the information department, in the PMO or the CMO, where they do discuss on editorial. So it has a function to perform. Editorial has various functions to perform. And the editorial need not be, normally it can be on any topic under the sky, but normally of the current value. What has happened yesterday, you can find an editorial today, but not something which is very old, and unless there is it can be even on sports. Suppose football is going on, an editorial can be there on football. Editorial can be, there is no hard and fast rule that you should write editorial only on so and so topic. But by and large, when you see editorials, when you go through editorials, you will find that most of the current issues are discussed threadbare, and a lot of research goes into an editorial, but mind you, an editorial is also written within a time-bound manner. We don't have too much time for that. The principle of editorial is that you have got to be very impartial. You have to cannot take sides, but you should not also mince your words. You You should be able to criticize if you feel criticism is required. You should appreciate also at the same time. You cannot be prejudicial. You cannot be partial. These are all some of the basic principles of editorial. A good editorial should look professional. It should be able to, it should be able to attract the attention of both the people who support an issue or the people who oppose an issue. Now, these are all what we mean by the principles of editorial and the functions of editorials. Last but not the least, whenever you see by the side of the editorial on the right side or at the bottom of the articles, you will find many times is letters to the editor. As we go along in this course, we also make the students to write letters to the editor as if they are common man, as if they are common reader, and every student has to publish at least one or two letters during the entire course. He should be able to publish as many as he can if he wants, but he should be able to get published letter, which means a letter doesn't get published by itself automatically. When he writes a letter, the letter is viewed, is read by the editor, by the editorial desk, and they see the importance of the topic that you have covered, and then they also edit your letter, and then when it appears into the newspaper, you will be able to see the difference between what you have written and what has been published, your same letter that has been published, and we will be able to do that kind of practicals for you and ensure that everyone gets their letter published and will not leave normally until you get a letter published. This is what we will be fine-tuning as you go along in practical classes. Letters to the editor. So with this we have seen various areas, dear students, of editing also. These are all the things, and much more are there to be discussed actually, and that will happen as we go along.